And good morning, everyone, and welcome to PerfWeb. What is this, 109, day one? 110, day one. Oh, man, I can't even keep track of my own numbers. 110, day one. As you can see, I'm here with my esteemed colleague,
Hello.
Vivian Moreno, and today's program is going to be really exciting. I'll do the introduction here in just a second, but let me first get started, if I can, with our opening remarks. So first of all, contact us at perfusioneducation.com if you want to send us an email, a letter, a compliment, a complaint, or if you want to be part of our faculty and give a lecture on something, of course, we'd be very happy to see that. But anything you want to do to contact us, that's how you do it. If you look down below, you'll see a crawl bar that continues to go throughout the program, and that's all of our various places where we are streaming. And if you would please subscribe, share, like us, do all those things, if you will, that you have to do on whatever that platform is in order for us to be recognized and continue to climb up the Google ladders, if you will. And then our MediWeb app, I'd like to talk about that. If you haven't already seen it or you haven't heard about it, it's I'll ask, we have someone in our studio audience today, one of our newest members of the HET family, Kevin. And Kevin, if I could ask you, do you have our app? Oh, that hurts me. Okay, that was a requirement. That was an absolute. You may have to have your probation extended for that. So our MediWeb app, you can find it on the Google Play Store, or you could find it on the Apple App Store. And it's really good for being able to calculate your flows, your red cell volume, your predicted hematocrit after priming, and it has a lot of different formulas in it for different parts of your case, SVR, including how much oxygen you have in an E-tank if you're transporting an ECMO, and do I have enough in this tank to get me from point A to point B? You have it, right? You have the app?
I do, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. You just, yep. Her probation just got done. You get extra probation. But I really am proud of the MediWeb app, and we are going to do an update on it. I haven't done it, but we're going to add the pulmonary artery pressure index score on it as well. Even though it's pretty easy to calculate just off the top of your head, just having it there to confirm, do the math for you, I think would be useful when you're trying to see how somebody's right heart is doing. You know, I think it's really important. It's a score that has become somewhat popular, and we all kind of. Do you use it? Have you used the
No, but
PAPI
I
score?
want to start using
It's really
it. Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good for somebody that's been in right heart failure to assess whether or not the right heart is recovering.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're trying to wean off of ECMO, if you were on ECMO, especially for right heart failure, it's a very useful tool, very useful formula to know. It's very simple, but it's easier if you could just go to an app, click it, and put the numbers in, and you get your score, and it gives you an explanation of what the score actually means.
Oh, that is
so
helpful.
I think that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as you know, we do our podcasts, and our podcasts are on whatever your particular platform is that you like to use, Spotify or what's the other one? Podbean. All of those
Apple.
things. Yes, yes. Any streaming software that you would normally use, you can use, and so it's very useful, I think, in that regard. And with that said, I think first of all, I've of course introduced Vivian already, and Vivian is one of our. You're not our newest member anymore.
No.
But you are our second newest member, actually. And you've been with us now for about 6 months, 8 months?
9 months now.
9 months, man,
Yeah.
time flies.
Yeah.
And has just done an exceptional job at one of the hospitals where you go. And our guest today, she is one of our guests' proteges, if you will, was trained by our guest. And this is something at a hospital. I won't say what hospital it was, but it's a hospital that is really hard to ever get a compliment out of. And they call her the animal, because when they had a crash on bypass situation, apparently they were highly impressed with how you managed that situation. And I think that's just, it makes me proud. It should make our guest proud. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce everyone to your mentor and teacher, Ed Delaney. There he is, Ed Delaney.
Morning, Ed.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Joe, Viv, thanks for having me.
So, Ed, the last time you were with us, I did a terrible job. Actually, I was really disappointed in myself. I did an awful job at introducing you. But let me just, for our audience, tell you that Ed is the Director of Perfusion Services at Northwell Health. He is the Director of Hofstra Northwell Cardiovascular Science and Perfusion Medicine Program at Hofstra University in Northwell Health. And he is the Chief of Perfusion at Lenox Hill Hospital. Now, there may be some other things that I don't know about. However, there was a time in my life when I believed I did a lot and somehow managed to keep it all just under control, keep a lid on it. I've got to ask you, how in God's name do you do all of that and whatever else you do, including making it to your children's soccer games? How do you do all of this, Ed? There is a formula. There is a secret. I kind of know what it is, but I want to hear it. I think our audience wants to hear it from you.
Yeah, I just work. I work through problems, time management. I kind of give myself a good kick every morning and get going. And I kind of knock down problems a little bit at a time. Sometimes I'll start a problem and I'll put it down and go back to it and make sure that I'm doing the right thing. But I tend to surround myself with good people that I can reflect with and bounce things off of, and that I can trust, and that's how I accomplish things each day. It's basically their help, and putting people around you that do the right things because they're the right things to do, essentially.
Well, that's really good. And if you don't mind, may I take that a little bit of a pathway, if you don't mind, because you said something that really triggered me. Okay, was a cue for me, and that is that you surround yourself with people that you can trust. And that is a critical element. Not only trust, but have in their heart the same mission that you have, which is success. How they get to there may be different than yours, which we learned from, but they have the same goal in mind, and that is success of the unit, of the team. But in reality, Ed, that takes time to develop. People, of course, sometimes you think a person's like that, but they end up not being like that. I don't know if you've had that experience in your life before, but I certainly have. People that are the best, they move on to something else for any variety of reasons. And then you have to have somebody who is of equal ability supplant that person. And a lot of those people that you're referring to and that I would refer to equally, they're few and far between.
Yeah. I think it lends to some of what I do every day. I'm always training people. I'm always recruiting people. With surrounding myself with people with similar goals, one of the things we try to do is make sure everybody's paying it forward, essentially. And that goes from teaching the basics of perfusion to precepting to having a good team dynamic. And you kind of hit it on, like, people will come and go, and you want them to go and evolve and kind of grow beyond you, of course. But it does hurt when they leave. I mean, that's just the reality of it, but you want to see them have success. And I think that some of what we talk about today with professionalism and basically going through the evolution of everybody's career and where you're at, and professionalism does hit different points in different people's careers. And I think when you look at where a person should be in their career, I think the basics are all the same with certain professionalist things. And then as they grow and evolve, I think you need to add things into kind of the repertoire, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'll also say, and I'll try to get your opinion about this, but one of the things that I feel like I can do better, and I'm trying to figure it out, is relationships, work relationships, though we're really not family, right? But there is a family element. It's a pseudo family, if you will, because the dynamics are kind of the same. And as you go through relationships, it's a lot like when, boy meets girl or girl meets boy or whatever variation of that you want. I'm just trying to be open-minded here. But it always starts off, with the honeymoon phase, right? And then you find these, you continue to grow in that way. And then you start noticing the things about somebody else that annoy you. And then you have conflict. And does that conflict ever really get resolved, or does it just simmer on the back burner for much longer period of time and raise its head somewhere down the road? And for a long-term relationship to endure, you have to experience all of those things and manage them well. I can't say that I am necessarily 100% happy with my ability to get, to manage all of those things. I'm trying, I work at it, I genuinely want to, but sometimes I just fail at it. And I have to, anytime a relationship fails, I feel like even though our human nature is to just blame something else, at the end of the day, I have to look in the mirror and say, what did you do wrong? Where did you go wrong? Why were you not able to salvage this relationship? What do you do? Because you clearly have a lot of relationships. You can't be chief and leader of these three major disparate entities and still and manage all of that. You clearly know something and are better at something than I am.
I might not be better at it, but I do try every day. I think a lot of it comes down to consistency and how you deal with things, and consistency in how you teach and your work ethic. But I think another part of that is perspective. There's a different perspective in a director role than there is in a coworker role or a preceptor to a student role. So I try to put things in perspective given the role that I'm taking on that day. I try to look at an employee's strengths and weaknesses, and are they, everybody comes with their own strengths and weaknesses, and I look at, is this a potential where I can get the employee to where I need them? Is this something where, they have enough strengths and good qualities that I can overlook the weaknesses? Or is it something where we need to remediate? And I think when those kind of things come into play, I think they're difficult decisions. And I think that if you take on senior leadership roles, that first of all, you have to go back and learn how to kind of do some conflict resolution. You have to go and talk to like-minded people and get a perspective on things, especially when you're in a corporate healthcare system. There's a lot of rules that apply, and it may not be how I would generally talk to somebody or handle things if there were no rules around the job or the aspect of the job. And I think that's the hardest thing, probably for the employee or the student or the coworker to understand. As you go into these higher roles, you're held to a different standard, and you can't be as frank as you want to. You can be candid, but you can't have some of those personal conversations that kind of would alleviate some stress because of the guidelines and rules you're held to now. So.
No, very good. I appreciate that. Well, I do think you have your topics today involve leadership, and I think that with that said, and I appreciate this dialogue. Did you want to add anything to it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So, how about if we turn to you and your slides, and maybe give us some perspectives on what we've sort of teed up here, and how you're doing what you're doing out there in Hofstra, and why, between you and Bruce, SUNY and Hofstra, anybody that I know that is trying to go to perfusion school that I think meets the standard the highest quality of type of person that I come in contact with, I try to direct them to both of your schools and say, these are the two schools that I highly recommend. Obviously, you need to get the ticket, you need to get the license to learn, go to whatever perfusion school you can get into, but really try to get into these two. And if you can, because I consider you to be with the same type of reputation, if you will, as going to an Ivy League school. I think both of you have demonstrated, at least in my opinion, to be genuinely the highest quality of training that I have seen in my perfusion career. So both of you, you particularly should be extremely proud of what you've accomplished there at Hofstra. I've been nothing but impressed.
Hey, thank you.
Okay.
So with that, I'm gonna how I approach this is I tried to put together some slides as with professionalism as I've gone from essentially student to perfusionist to chief to director, and as my career has evolved. So I've had a number of roles in perfusion over the years. Here's a few of the roles that I've had, but not all of them. And what I want to do is I do have some pictures of different people, and I'm going to kind of drift off and explain some of the pathways that these people helped me in my career, like those pivotal kind of decisions and opportunities. Because I think that's where professionalism comes in, managing people comes in. I think understanding, getting to a place and who got you there is very helpful, and how it happens. I always love these two slides, and the one on the left, and Joe, you had mentioned something about the mission and the people you surround yourself. You want to make sure that they're on the same trajectory that you're on, or that you can get them on the same page and trajectory, that you surround yourself with good people that are going to mentor you and help you and support kind of the mission that you have. And then I always love the slide on the right. It kind of brings you back to my sports days, but that repetition, that grind, that getting up every day and just kind of knocking it out and doing it and trying to achieve the goals. And once you achieve the goals, you set the next goal. And with that in mind, as you pick away at a problem, you can pretty much get through anything in life. The 5 things I learned kind of coaching, teaching students, grads, perfusionists, good mentors and mentees, they're imperative to the field. You have to seek them out, train them, and get them to where you want your profession to be. If you see something in a young person or a student, nurture it. Take ownership of their progression and progress. You want to assess on current and future potential, not just where they're at today, but where they could possibly be in 1, 5, and 10 years. We always talk a lot about generational gaps and different groups of people as they go through their profession, but I really think a lot of the differences are less significant than we think. I think that we have more in common when you look at different things. I have a slide or two that's going to highlight that later on. But active learning and listening is key. And when I say active learning, not just being taught, going out and seeking out information, bringing it back, having open dialogue and conversations with these like-minded people. I think staying in the trenches is important. I think respect is earned over time. You give an initial amount of respect, and then you earn it over time. And then acknowledging mistakes and learning from them. I made plenty of mistakes in my career. I try to do better all the time. And then I always love this picture. There's definitely a coachable moment here, and it's usually not what you think. This big guy had a very rough day with this little lacrosse player. So we all
my God.
somewhere.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. So I did do some little legwork and got some pictures of you pre and post your career. Take the time to encourage and recruit the students beyond pumping a case. Teach them the surgeries, instrumentation, go beyond the simple pump things, acclimate them to an OR and the roles of the OR. Talk with them about opportunities out of the hospital, in the hospital, offer your guidance. Remember that they're students and where they're at in their careers, buy them a coffee, buy them a lunch, take time. Ask broad questions and actively listen, and sometimes give advice and sometimes just listen. So these are a couple mentors I had along the way. Linda Mongero, Deb Adams, they actually, when I was up in Connecticut, I met them when I was teaching at Quinnipiac, and they actually got me involved in the American board. They also, in the future, got me involved in the accreditation committee for perfusion education. And they've been great mentors. They saw something in me, they nurtured it. They're the kind of people I always try to emulate. On the right is Harvey Ellis. He's been around perfusion a very long time, taught me a lot of lessons in perfusion, convinced me to go up to Connecticut. It's where I was able to get my master's degree in time and then have that time to work on the American board. Down below is Mark Petracci. He was very pivotal in a lot of decisions I made early in my career. Very good guy, mentored me. And these are some of the people that kind of helped me in my crossroads and gave me just great advice and listened and were there for me. And I think it's important. I think it's important to acknowledge some of these people. And this is just the tip of the iceberg in my career. I could go weeks for thanking people that have helped me along the way. But good mentors, they guide students and new grads with clear expectations, educate perfusionists and students how to be a perfusion professional. They give insight into their journey in a relatable way. They give positive and encouraging feedback, and sometimes they give candid or much needed feedback. Try to make time. We're all busy, and I think time is undervalued, and some people always feel you don't give enough time. And they're sometimes right if you're busy and kind of actively doing things. It's one of the things that I struggle with every day is how to give everybody time. Actively learn and listen to students. Students have seen new technology, have been on other sites. They can bring something to the table, and they're going to be your future. So it's imperative that we nurture these people. Well-mentored students and new grads make great employees, coworkers, and people. You know, what does a mentee look like, right? So up top, I have Viv, obviously, and two brothers that went through the program, and they've gone on to do really great things in perfusion. I'm super proud of them. And at the bottom, that's me going through perfusion school, bartending at night and studying. I may be doing an inventory list here, but I always had my flashcards as I bartended. I got made fun of a lot, but I had my goals in mind and perspectives. And basically, a good mentee responds and follows up with expectations, works on good communication and relationship building. There's a diplomacy to this that you'll have to learn over time. Appreciates time spent with them. Thank people, right? You know, if somebody gives you their time, appreciate that time. Puts in the time and work during mentoring and in off hours, bringing information back and looking things up that you didn't know. Has a positive can-do attitude, coachable. Most important thing you can be as a student, employee, new grad, and even current perfusionist with some expertise. Actively learns and listens, dialogues about experiences and technology they have learned, discusses other sites when appropriate, helps the mentors with different technology things. As we get older, we all seem to struggle with technology things. Bridge some of the gaps in those things. There's a place there for actively participating. And then proactively seek to emulate teachings and always pay it forward. The one thing when people ask what they can do, I tell them, pay it forward, teach the next generation, make sure that you're helping. This is the most important thing, be coachable. You can control, and even at my experience level and age, I control my effort, my hard work, putting in time, being on time, communicating, and attitude. They're all things that every person can control. People have to understand, even at my stage in the game, you know, the world doesn't owe me anything, you know. People will take my opportunity if I let them. People will take your opportunities if you let them. There's always somebody out there working and hustling. You have to be very cognizant of your body language and facial expressions when you're dialoguing with people, when you're giving feedback, receiving feedback. Acknowledge the feedback, make the changes, acknowledge time spent, thank mentors and coworkers for their feedback, shake hands, be respectful, pay it forward, and say yes to opportunities. And why does all that matter? And I love this picture because this is one of my retired perfusionists now, but she had over 30 years experience. And this is a perfusionist on the right who was a student and then went to new grad and then came back and helped us cover cases. And it's that progression that we're looking for in professionalism, right? So it all matters. You actively listen to the student, you assess when you're talking to students and kind of addressing things and addressing remediation. Look for honesty, look for remorse, look for somebody who can do better, look for somebody who wants to do better. You know, develop learning contracts, set metrics, have them have an understanding. Assign the mentors, hold student, instructors, and preceptors accountable, not just the student. Assess progression and evaluate. Continue to mentor even beyond clinical and perfusion programs. Anybody's allowed to call me at any time, at any stage of their career for anything. Say yes. And I'm going to take a second. On the right's Bob Rotolo, and he is the person that got me into perfusion. And I worked in a blood bank. I thought that Bob was a nurse. He used to come down and get blood all the time, and we would talk and kid around a little bit. And I was young and energetic and probably a little funny to Bob. And one day I was filling out an application to go back and do a master's in cell and molecular biology. He's the one that told me that I would be bored and have a terrible life and career if I did that. And told me to come and see what he did. And I, you know, to my naivety, I thought he was a nurse. I said, I really don't want to be a nurse. And I think I offended him a little bit.
I got asked that the other day. Are you a nurse? No, but nurses are really nurses have a harder job than me. That's what I tell everybody because it's true.
They take on a lot.
But he said, hey, are you willing to take a day off and come? And I said, I am, you know, because I was figuring out what I wanted to do beyond what I'd already done. And I went to the operating room and I watched a case with him and I was just overwhelmed. And I've been on a 25+ year sprint since meeting since meeting Lou Brownstein. I'm sorry, that's Lou Brownstein. Since meeting Lou Brownstein. And honestly, it was him who kind of gave me my start. And I asked him what I needed to do and how I could get into perfusion school. And he guided me along with that. And he was my director in my school many years ago. But saying yes, right? And I said yes to that opportunity. I said yes to taking a day off. And, you know, it's even, I wasn't being paid for that. Like I used my own time as a struggling new grad with no money. But I took an opportunity and I went forward. You know, you're going to build your name and your CV, and over time, your CV will bring you future opportunities. You don't always have to be compensated for what you do. Say yes to when colleagues and students need help. Most will remember, some don't, but most will. You build bridges, ask that they pay it forward if they want to give back to you. You know, and Joe Greco, my co-director at Hofstra, this is his statement. I've stolen it over the years too. But the name on the back of the jersey matters as much as the player. And it goes back to who do you represent or what do you represent? And you know that, you know, your parents, your mentors, your programs, you're representing all of that. And so you really want to make sure that you're representing everything in the best light. Say yes to help and allowing colleagues, students, and employees to grow. Say yes to taking on the hard work and the problems. You'll never regret the journey. You're either going to succeed, you're going to learn, or you're going to pivot. I've done all three. They all have value, but you never really truly fail until you quit. I tell me and my family, we don't believe in quitting. They might want to, but I don't let them. So. Generational gaps, and this is kind of just it segues into my next slide, but you know, it's basically as you go in a career, there's gaps in where you're at in your career. You know, some people are in the beginning of their career, some people are building families, some people are at the end of their career. But we have longer lifespans in general, but longer lifespans in perfusion, so you see more generational gaps. But if you look at the generational gaps themselves, most things are common. Everybody wants to be paid for a good day's work. Everybody wants to be acknowledged. Everybody wants job security. Everybody wants to pursue their passions. And, you know, even everybody from this list up does want some kind of work-life balance. The one thing I found very interesting in this list, the baby boomers, and I don't think it's transcended down the list very well, is a boss they believe is worthy and of their respect. And I think that's something that every generation probably needs to do a little bit better at, is some sense of loyalty, some sense of paying it forward, some sense of, understanding that your field was built on the backs of giants that came before you. And to give kind of a little bit of acknowledgement of that as you make your way up, and this way you're not cannibalizing the people that came before you. You're learning from them and using them as mentors. And then directors and people that are in kind of my stage in life, Joe's stage in life, we got to remember that, you're not in the trenches unless you're actually in the trenches, So take time, and I unfortunately, the more I go up, it's harder to do this, but I still build pumps when I can. I still clean up rooms when I can. I still put stock away when I can. I sit with both junior and senior perfusionists, not just the juniors. I still eat it and take call and stay late, even though I'm a salaried employee. And I try to do some of those menial tasks. Just a gentle reminder, lead yourself and lead others, motivate yourself and train. Work hard, have moral courage to speak up and do the right things because they're the right things to do. How do we expect young, smart people to follow us unless we are the examples, essentially? You must lead those below you with actually taking orders from the people above you and protecting the people below you from the people above you, essentially. There's no faster way to lose respect as a frontline leader than to only look up and never look down or to the left and right with the people that are around you. And then, try to get people around you to understand that there is a bigger picture, that the institutions and what they're working for have a bigger plan. And when the time comes, try to make the decisions to take the hard right. You want to take the hard right instead of the easy left of some of these decisions, and try to bring everybody with you, or in time make them understand the processes and how things work. And then lead with your heart and head. Strong bonds are forged through adversity, hard work, mutual respect, and common goals. And I think when you have these team goals, you're able to lead with success. And this doesn't mean that we need to be soft, and sometimes with our field, tough love is required and candid conversations. And we're all kind of type A, hard-headed, hard-working persons in this field, so that they can be critical, difficult conversations. But I always love this quote at the end: "We must all hang together, or most assuredly we will hang separately." That was from Ben Franklin, and it holds true. And then I just have to, first person ever gave me my first job and opportunity was Bob and Tom Rotolo. Two great guys. They had a perfusion group, very nurturing, very helpful, and I'm sure I was a young kid with wild ideas, and they did a great job of tempering me, training me, and kind of put me on my initial path. So that's pretty much what I have, and I'm open to answer any questions in any realm of my career that I've been through.
That was Ed. That was really outstanding, and there's some things that really struck me. But I'm going to turn this over to you now. I think you're ready.
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
and I'm going to let you do some interviewing.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, I've got more comments than questions, but they're all good things. So I was fortunate to rotate at my first rotation for 8 months at Lenox with Ed, and being part of the Hofstra program and being a student at Lenox as well, I saw that between him, Shannon Quinn, Joe Greco, and other members of the team at Lenox as well, that Ed was also very big on communication, so I always appreciated that, and I felt that goes a long way. Active learning and listening is key as well. I do agree with Ed on that. I really enjoyed how I was taught there as a student. I kind of looked at it as like a phased progression throughout my 8 months, and by the end of my 8 months, I was pretty good at what I was doing. And it's really cool to look back and see how much you progress from when you started up until you're finishing that first rotation. And the other thing that I really liked just being in the program as well as the way that we were taught, especially with Ed and Joe, was it's not just do you know the information, but can you apply it? And I take that very seriously because when I went to the United Kingdom, that's how their education system is. You could be taught something, you can learn the lectures, but all the exams, all the material, you had to be able to apply that knowledge to what was given to you. So I was quite happy to see that carried on as a student at Hofstra with Ed and Joe. I did see that, he's bringing virtual reality, as we saw about a month ago, I think, with implementing that into the program. So I saw the presentation with his student, Tommy Nguyen, and it was really cool to see what they've brought to the table with that. I think, as someone that is a visual learner, I think something like that's very useful. And I think a lot of us in the field are visual learners. Obviously, being in rotations is key, and it's, the foundation of getting us through school. But I feel like, being able to have that to take in your own time or at home, you can fix up on things or see things ahead of time. And I think that is very helpful for when you go out into the field as a student as well. And then eventually when you graduate and become a practicing perfusionist. Trying to think what else. Building bridges is something that Ed has always said that stuck with me, even to this day. I mentioned it, it's like one of my top learning lessons in my commencement speech as well. But that was something that always stuck with me. I feel like that's very, very important. Burning them does no good. I feel that
But it's easy to.
It is very
Building
easy
a bridge
to.
is hard.
It is.
Burning them down is easy. I know. There's a dumpster fire right here for a reason.
But no, it's always stuck with me. I feel like it's very important, and it's sad and consequential to see what could happen if you burn bridges.
Clearly.
And I feel something else that I've seen as well as a practicing perfusionist is being open to feedback for growth, something that Ed had mentioned, and I know that you're big on as well. I sometimes see with the younger generation or with some of the new grads, there's sometimes a bit of pushback with getting feedback, but I think the mentality should always be, how can I level up next and be the best perfusionist that I can be? I feel like all feedback's good. So you can't grow from it unless you take it and, you learn from it.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I completely agree with you. I'd like to ask both you and Ed,
Yeah.
since Ed, you trained her and Vivian, Ed trained you, right? So we have this unique opportunity here, but you talk about burning bridges or building bridges, both. Inherently, I think that we go through life and that people do occasionally set fire to bridges, and they do burn, but they don't necessarily completely incinerate. And sometimes, if you just are accountable and you take responsibility for whatever your part of whatever the issue was, that as a species, and I think this just transcends perfusion, but this is just a human trait, most human beings are forgiving. And most human beings can, given the right context, the right conversation, the right level of accountability, you can take a bridge that's been damaged, maybe not completely destroyed, but damaged, and rebuild that bridge. And I think that that's what I had mentioned earlier in the evolution of relationships and getting people that are on your team to stay on your team, because not everybody, and I'm certainly very imperfect, make way more mistakes than I do good things, and I have to learn from that and try not to repeat the same ones over again. Though sometimes that is a habit, because I have habits which are not necessarily great. But the importance of remembering what you said, that the name on your back represents not just yourself, it represents a team. You're representing something. You're wearing a uniform. Your name may be on it, but the team's logo is on the helmet. And the colors are the team's logos, right? And so I think that's so important. How did, I understand also that Tommy Nguyen has an interest possibly in coming here. So, that would be two of your mentees that I would acquire. I think we're going to look at him very carefully and evaluate our need at the moment. But certainly we are looking for quality people. But now that you're out of school, Ed, if maybe you could talk about this a little bit, give me some lessons, because I learned a lot today already. Okay, let me tell you something. You've inspired me. If I didn't say that already, you've inspired me. If that was your goal, you accomplished it. But I see Vivian as a person who is going to be a leader in this industry. I see her on that trajectory. And of course, I have a lot of different employees, and some of them at different levels have different goals and different desires and different interests. And I see it clearly in her. I don't always necessarily know exactly where everybody is really trying to get to, but I try, but it's not as clear. Hers very clear. I have to divide my time, Ed. I have to figure out, how do I focus on this person that I know is on this pathway and help get her where she wants to be, where she should be, and not forget these people over here, or lose or not spend enough time with other people that have different goals, but maybe not as clear. How do you manage that?
I think if you're a good person, you're never going to think you do it well enough. You're always going to feel a little guilty. And I think you have to invest your time where it's most beneficial to individuals and the group as a whole. What a lot of what we do with the perfusion school is we give opportunities to the entire group and kind of see who seeks them out, who takes them. And that's one group where we kind of mentor and put in a direction, and then we also look at, okay, who really needs our help, who is struggling. It's kind of, what is that? It's like an 80-10-10 rule, and it's basically like the top 10%, are always going to be that top 10%. They don't need a lot of help. You kind of give them the ball and they score touchdowns. And then that bottom 10% kind of takes up 80% of your time. And then the middle, you kind of do the best for in the instances you can. I always use a gauge of, when I give people opportunities, who takes them, who's that first responder. If I give an assignment, who puts the effort into those things? I try to mimic the effort back in those people. And I may not be able to do it in the program because there's a number of people in the program, but what I'll always do is I'll always get them to employers. I'll always write a recommendation for them. We keep a WhatsApp chat with every class, and we keep in contact with the perfusionists that have all gone through the school. And what we try to do is we kind of give opportunities out there. We try to do some alumni events, and basically I'll tell you, anybody that gets out of our Hofstra program, they're worth my time, my effort. They've earned it. There's nobody that gets through that. We haven't pushed no one through. I can tell you that right now. And the students that have gone through will tell you that too. We hold them very accountable. And I think that accountability is something that's very difficult to do. It's tough for the student. It's tough for Joe and I. It's tough when you have employees. But I think when you hold somebody accountable, you make a better perfusion professional.
Yeah, that's really good. You've said something that, again, I'm kind of reassessing my methodology, if you will, because I try to find things that I need done, and then I try to find the person who I think has, based on my experience with that person, the most suitable attributes to accomplish this particular thing, and then I'll offer to them this opportunity. And you're saying you put the opportunity out there and see who responds. And right. Those are two different methodologies. And I've really not considered your methodology, and I'm certainly considering it now as something that I could take away from this lecture and utilize in my everyday life, because I've done it in a complete 180-degree way.
I always want to see who kind of goes the extra effort, who kind of takes things upon themselves and does it. If I give somebody a project, I want to see who makes it better. I can always go back and I can revise and I can do it. The people who always stand out to me are the ones who I give a simple project and they just blow me away with what they've done with it. And that they're the kind of people that I really love to kind of employ. And I like I said, I try to look at people's strengths and where they can be useful to the organization, or even what does perfusion need? You know, does it need, or what do I need out of a perfusion? Do I need a research person? Do I need a quality person? Do I need that trench mentality, work ethic kind of perfusionist that's just going to grind it out? You know, do I need somebody that's the quintessential cheerleader, happy person that's going to help with morale? And it's hard to find those kind of people. Sometimes I can't, and sometimes that's difficult. I know I may need them on a team, but I always keep in mind that that's the kind of team and culture I need, and I try to diversify some of those strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. You've given me a lot of food for thought, and I'm not trying to embarrass you, and please forgive me for that if I am.
No.
But you know, one of the things that Vivian does, she just recently went to the academy. In fact, I got a picture. Deb Adams sent me a picture. And by the way, if she's one of your mentors, she's one of my mentors.
Yes.
I've actually been doing this job longer than her, and she's still one of my mentors, believe it or not. And I think that just has to do with her level of professionalism and ethical standards and level of accountability just exceeds so many people's. I mean, to me, she's an icon, to be frank with you. She's not here. She probably will never hear me say this, but it's really how I feel. So, you know, you can always believe what somebody says something about you behind your back. And that's the way I would talk about Deb Adams behind her back. And say even nicer things to her, as a matter of fact. But with that said, you know, she just came from the academy, and she went up, of course, to where you were. She went to her high school. And I feel confident that you are actually going there, and yes, you are representing you, but you are representing me.
Yes.
And that means something to me. That's value. That is value to me. And I don't think I've said that to you before, so I'll say it now. Ed, how do you feel about that?
Well,
Because she's
I love it.
representing
Number
you too.
one, I think that not only she represents you, she represents me and Joe and everybody. And one of our cardiac surgeons, that's our medical director, Dr. Frank Mineta, he asked me what I wanted one day, and we were talking about salary and things like that. And he's like, "But Ed," he's like, take the money out of the situation. What do you want?" And the one thing, and the one thing that came up is I wanted to create a legacy of people that I trained and helped. And I think when you do that, it kind of changes your perspective and the dynamic. And when you see perfusionist students, preceptors that go out in their life bib and they kind of pay it forward and do the right things, you know you've done good and you're on the right track. So, and for me, it always emboldens me, and it kind of drives me. And like I said, that kick in the rear end I give myself every morning, that's part of it, is seeing the end product in the perfusionist that I put out there. So.
Yeah, that is outstanding. So tell us how you feel. How do you feel when you go and you give these lectures? What's going through your mind?
Well, obviously, I want to do you guys proud. I try to keep everything, you know, professional, but because I had given the opportunity to do it at NYSSP, and Ed was great, cool enough to give me the opportunity to do that. I actually presented him the paper, and I was like, you know, could I present this? He read it. He was all for it. And I thought it'd be good to bring it to the academy. And a lot of the feedback that I got was bringing some new science to the field. And, you know, it was some work that I had done right before I got into perfusion school. I feel like it did help me along with all the other research work that I did. And, you know, thank you to Dr. Ferrari for hiring me into that research group, and everybody in the Ferrari lab too. I owe them credit, because I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for that position, basically. Because that's how I met the perfusion team, and then I'm here speaking with both of you guys.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, you know, I am very proud of you. And
Thank
Ed, you
you.
should be very proud of her too, because she has just
Thanks, Ed.
she has excelled, Ed. I'm telling you, she's excelled. I agree with you 100%. The trenches are important. You got to live the grind.
Yeah.
Because you can't understand what their challenges are if you don't. And though my caseload maybe has reduced to some degree. I still take call. I still respond to emergencies. I still do shitty cases. And it's just the way it goes. But I don't feel that I would have credibility with my younger colleagues, nor would I have credibility in this industry if I was clinically removed and I was just pontificating a bunch of nonsense from 10 years ago. I think you just lose too much credibility. So in my view, being clinically active is a critical element, and I would agree with you there 100%. Acknowledging mistakes, I don't think anyone. I'm satisfied that I'm very willing to acknowledge my mistakes. I might not be a coachable person, but I do appreciate when somebody is coachable. I'm somewhat of a recalcitrant when it comes to that, but I'm working on it still in my old age. Where the hell did you get that picture from is what I want to know. Was it you?
No, it was definitely not me.
I'm going to find out. I will find out eventually. Eagerness, I will take an overeager, annoying person over a person who just doesn't give a shit any day of the week. I can control eagerness. I can't make somebody who just doesn't care. They just want to out by noon with no balloon. I don't want to. I want to do only the bare minimum and make the most I can and see you later. Bye. I'm in it for myself, and that's all there is to it. And I don't want people like that in our organization. I just have to accept that. Right now, in the perfusion section, this has been, and it's taken me 16 years to get here, but 16 years later, I will say that in my perfusion division, we have the best team, the most solid team, the most professional team, the most qualified team, the most capable team, and the most loyal team I've ever, when I say loyal, I mean loyal to all of their colleagues, their patients, the hospitals, and this company combined. I don't think it is the best it's ever been. It took me 16 years to get here, and I am damn happy that I have finally gotten here because it feels really, really good.
I think that's underestimated too, is when you build a culture, it takes years to build a culture, and it takes minutes to break that culture. And so, I know you're probably very protective of it. I'm extremely protective of it because building that culture does take years. And unfortunately, a 1, 2, 3 perfusionist can destroy a culture of a place. And so you really got to hire the right people. You really have to make sure they're good quality people. And you really have to kind of marginalize and mitigate anybody that's going to destroy that culture.
Absolutely. That is a harsh reality, as hard as that is. Because I'm sure you and I have both share this in that telling someone that it's time for them to go is never easy. It doesn't matter how bad they were. It doesn't matter. You know what impact it will have. And it's a painful, painful experience. I don't wish it on anybody. However, I also was very interested in your slide. I'm going to go back and look at it, of the the generational items of import, and that they were all there. Everybody had them. It's just where on the list 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 were they? And I thought that was fascinating because it goes to your first point, which was there's not really that much in the way of generational difference. It's just what your priorities are of these limited items. And I thought that was very interesting.
One of the most valuable team members is somebody that can have that's not the actual director or chief, but somebody on the team that has a good demeanor, that puts things in perspective for different employees. And whether they're in the middle, talking to the older employees or the younger ones, or whether they're older, letting the other employees know that, hey, I understand that you feel this is the most important thing in your career, but it's not. As you evolve and as you see things, the grass isn't necessarily greener, that you really want to go for autonomy, a good culture, a good team. And what you want is something that you're happy to go to every day, and you don't want to give that up. You don't want to mess that up.
Yeah, agreed. It's correct. We do change over time. Our priorities change over time. You're single, you're living la vida loca, you're having a blast, and then boy meets girl, boy or girl meets boy, or whatever the case may be, and you get married, and then all of a sudden you have a different paradigm, and then you start having children, and now you're having an even different paradigm. And looking at things in totality as opposed to one individual thing in this collection of things that are important to everyone's career is critical to say, okay, this may not be perfect for me, but man, 4 out of the 5 are. There's only one that isn't ideal. If I go try to find that one ideal, do I sacrifice the other 4? And is it so bad, so far from what I can tolerate, that I just have to go? And when you really reflect, most of the time you'll find that that one thing really isn't that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. Well, any further questions?
None.
Comments, concerns?
I feel that mutual respect between the team and the team leader is important too, because you can have a great boss, but I think having good employees does go a long way too. Ultimately, you have the same goal, and you don't want anything disrupting that team dynamic either. So having that's key. So
it is. I agree with you. You need to depend on all of your teammates.
Yeah.
Your teammates need to be able to depend on you.
Yeah.
We all have to depend on each other. I think you're 100% right. But I will say that, and this has always been my impression, it's why when a football team is losing all of the time, they fire the coach.
Oh, true.
They don't fire the team. And anytime that you're in a position, as in the case of Ed, more so than me, but to some degree me, a lesser degree, everything emanates from that place, good, bad, and indifferent. And if the leader of an organization is petty and likes conflict, has cliques versus respectful relationships with everybody, has favorites, it breeds that element, whatever that element is, into the group itself. At least that's been my experience. So it's very important that I don't know if you have this as well, Ed, but although I love all of you in a way, I view you as family in a way. That word is used a lot of times, I think, completely out of context and almost to a point of being being overused. But it is a quasi pseudo type of thing, and actually genuinely caring about somebody really matters, just as a human being, but as a colleague. And that you have to show that, because if you don't, then people don't feel that they have a leader who is there, but yet it's a lonely place. So you have this need to know your people. You have this need to have a connection with your people, but there is a wall that can't be crossed. And the position that I'm in, and I think, Ed, you would agree, you may agree, is a very lonely place, because we can only allow that to go so far. You can't cross that line, or you lose that particular element. At least that's, again, what I think.
I think that's the hardest thing for the employees to understand, and you'll get comments where it'll be like, oh, they don't care and things like that. But there's a difference between caring and being able to do something about it. And when you treat, in this day and age, if you treat an individual different any way, it can be held against you as a leader, and it could be something positive. If you are doing for one person and you didn't do for the entire group, it can be used against you, unfortunately. So it does make it very difficult to still be compassionate, understand, try to help the group without stepping over a line. And it's a fine balance for directors and managers in today's world to kind of not get caught in the frying pan, if you will, with doing that. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point. Actually, we're going to have to do a part 2, because I have another hour worth of conversation that I want to have with you, because I think your insights are just so on point and so well thought out. So if you promise me that this won't be your last time with us, and we get to have a second part to this conversation somewhere in the not too distant future, I would be most appreciative.
It'll be a different conversation. I'm continuing to evolve, so I would love to do that.
Sounds good. So with all of that said, Kevin, did you have any questions? No questions? You're good? Okay. I asked all of the questions you were going to ask. See, that's how it is. Telepathy. Is it telepathy, right? Is how you say it? Yeah, telepathy. With all of that said, next week on Wednesday will be part 2 of our program, and it's going to be moi talking about conditions where ECMO is appropriate, which will also include conditions where it's really not, but we still do it, and ECMO cannulation options for a variety of different things. So we're going to shift gears from a more, social sort of thing to a just back to science and talking about the nuts and bolts of what it is we do and why we do it, because I still think there's a lot of new ECMO programs that are budding and developing, and I think there's a lot of people out there that don't really understand what they're getting into, but they're getting into it. And I hope that this kind of stuff, because we have a lot of ECMO experience here, will be of some benefit to those folks. So that's going to be next week, I think Wednesday, starting at 11 o'clock. And I believe it's for 2 hours. So you get me for 2 hours. And Ed will talk again and reschedule something and give you a little break from us for a while. But if you have anything you want to talk about, or you have any questions, or just want to get together and talk about stuff, please don't hesitate to call me. And I hope that I could ask your grace to allow me to contact you at some point if I have some questions, because I think you've got a lot to teach me and a lot to teach the people in our perfusion community on a worldwide level.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
You are so welcome, sir. It's great seeing you. Thank you so much. Thank you,
of course,
Vivian, for being here as always. And we'll talk to all of you next week on Wednesday. Peace out.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Ed.
Bye, man.